million. So there's a gap right there.
Okay. Which is not unusual in most projects.
Correct. But there are concerns on both the part of EDA and HMSA about the scale of the project and the ability to finance the entire project. They also came with part of the pro forma was this RAB that they're proposing. So basically, after that meeting, they told us that they were going to meet independently with both the EDA and the HMSA to go over the financial pro forma. In September, we maybe had one or two subsequent phone calls, and then on the request of Full Spectrum, they asked that there be no more phone calls through October so they could get their financial numbers together and come back to us at the beginning of November with a revised pro forma. That is where we are. Most certainly, if we had the documents that we had been requesting, we would move forward. We're trying to do our due diligence on behalf of the city, but we need certain things in order to do that, and that's what we're waiting.
Okay, I'm going to ask them this time that we do as we've always done for developers. Mr. Bethea, ma'am.
Yeah, you have the floor, ma'am.
I'd like to ask them that, I don't like doing this type of thing at this table, all right? The simplest thing to do is to extend or look at where you're going to be in terms of an extension. See, you should have did this before you got here. All right? So, the only question is, do you intend to extend the designation?
Yes, but we need those financial numbers. Okay, if you notice the date of these letters, I'm just seeing these letters. These are dated today and yesterday. We can get the financial information that we are requesting in addition to the market study that we have been requesting even before I got here. We want to see this project happen as much as you do, but we need to do our due diligence and make sure that the numbers work.
No one.
There are serious concerns on the part of our financial partners, if you will, the EDA and the HMSA. We just want to make sure that the project works financially.
And so do we, because we're not going to give away the city. So
right.
What I'm asking
That's
is
correct.
that you just set it up, extend the designation with them, one way or the other, and talk on it, because you wasting our time. Because there's nothing that we're going to do except either deny it or extend it. So it is the pleasure of the Northwood Council member and the people at this table. Do you want to extend the development? I mean, we have what they initially brought before council, which should have been before us again tonight, or previous to review, so that the memory would be refreshed.
Okay.
Some of us are not as young as, you folks. We don't remember every details, and those details should be something that are in front of us, number one. And number two is, it's real simple. Extend the designation and make some decisions. The question is, Mr. President, Mr. Bethea, Mr. Costello, Staten, and Malone, how long do you want to extend the designation for? It's your privilege. What do you want to do?
Well,
I mean, because listen, we can go back and forth, but this is not council's argument. This is something they need to work out. Administration with the developer with administration. I don't like to waste my time like this. I have a 7-year-old.
Let's be clear with regards to Mr. Isaac. Mr. Isaac has graciously come to give us an update on the project. That's what we initially asked.
They did. They just did.
Well, let me put it in perspective. I respect the position that you put. Was to put it in perspective as to where they've gone, where they're at, and what they deem to be the necessary holdup with regards to getting the designation so that they can have something to show their funders that we have some site control and we can start moving toward. One second. And I understand that you made that your position is please provide us X amount of information by November. I'm going to assume that's in the works with regards to the request that the directors made. Gentlemen, is that in the works?
Yes,
that's in the works. Yes, that's in the works. And then you will be prepared to issue a designation.
Yes, but I would really like, and I did mention this to Brandon, for your benefit, council, and I think for all of council, for you to be clear on exactly what it is you will be looking for from this council in terms of a pilot. I think that should be key.
Well, that was a question that I asked.
Even get to that.
No, we haven't gotten to that, but that will be on the floor, and you'll be talking about why didn't we talk about that when we had.
No, Mr. President. we're at a standstill here. He can't tell me anything about anything because he doesn't have anything to tell me about. So he's not in a position to make me any commitment with no designation. I'm not going for that tonight.
Councilwoman, I understand that, but his financial projections are based on a certain pilot that he will be looking for.
And so you're giving him a designation to come back before council to bring a plan and a program, not for full approval. You're just giving him a designation.
I just am taking to heart what you told me very early on in the process.
Early on is I want to know what's going on.
Exactly.
I want to know what monies you intend to spend. These gentlemen cannot tell me anything tonight. They don't have a designation.
Well, that's not necessarily true. Just because they don't have a designation doesn't mean that they don't have their financial numbers.
And I just asked them to prepare a plan and bring it back. But before they spend any more money, designate them whether it's going to be, and it's not your job to do, it's this council. Designate them for whatever period of time you're going to designate them. Give them benchmarks as to where they're going to be in terms of providing information and move forward. That's all. I just, listen, I don't have tolerance for this kind of stuff. I just don't.
I guess I just want to make it very clear that as far as I'm concerned, we are working with them to move forward.
But it's not your job to issue the designation to this council, with all due respect. With all due respect. So, Mr. President, what you need to do is set some benchmarks with this council as to where you want them to be. In 30 days, you want the papers telling you what you're going to do. You're asking these guys to give us something that they gave us a long time ago about where they're going to be. Now you're asking them to make some other commitments. They don't even have a designation. I mean, I just, see, and I appreciate, Director, your desire to provide the opportunity, but not without a designation. Either designate them or not. But one way, move forward and make some benchmarks. So you know why we have problems? You give people designations for a year, you let them expire, and you have no benchmarks. So give them a designation, Ms. Bethea, give them some benchmarks, and let's move forward. All right?
Councilwoman, I can appreciate that. I don't know about that specific benchmark in that designation, but going forward, all the designations have specific benchmarks.
Then make some for them to set the designation period, Mr. Bethea. I want to go home.
Anything else, Councilwoman? Anything else for the record, Mr. State?
I'm done.
Hello, anything for the record? Mr. State? I want to go back just to take back two more things that Mr. State said. We don't sit on the administration side. So,
Well, we do provide the designation, right?
No doubt. No doubt. We approve whether or not the designation goes forward. That's clearly the legislative authority, the prerogative of the legislative body, should I say. But I also believe that to the extent possible, with regard, and that's why I didn't ask you what was the anticipation of what you want from the administration. What is it that you anticipate that you will need from this body so that it's public, that it's on the record, and then when a designation comes before us, we get some information with regards to you need X, Y, Z in terms of a pilot or what have you, because we've kind of sort of dealt with this issue a little bit before you got here. Not dealing with your project, but dealing with other projects.
Here's what we aren't asking for any special tax abatement. Basically, our structure for this is that today, that property that we're looking at doing this development on generates, I don't know, $50,000, $100,000, some magic number in taxes, right? When it's improved, the buildings are built, then based on the tax rating, right, it will generate, something larger than that, $100,000 plus something. Let's say it generates $500,000 in taxes. What we want to do is use that differential increase in taxes. If it was $100,000 now and it generates $500,000 in taxes in the future when this thing is built, we want to use that $400,000, and this is what the RAP is. We want to use that incremental tax that the city would gather to pay bonds to create the $26 million in equity that would go into the deal. And what First Southwest did is they looked at a model, and since our last meeting, we did change the model because there was that $12 million gap because the project would have had been done in phases, and that just didn't make any sense. So we sort of changed the financial engineering on it so it does not have to be done in phases, which they haven't seen, yet. So it would be a single phase, and it's only $3.6 million or $3.8 million from the state, HMFA, And what we would do is with that incremental $400,000, it would pay off the bonds that, on an annual basis, for 25 years or whatever number of years to pay the tax, to pay for the construction, right, the RAP. What happens during the first 5 years of that, just basically, and this isn't, as I understand it, it's not a special request. For new construction in cities for the first 5 years, the taxes burn in over a 5-year period. So the first year I pay what the value of the taxes is today unimproved. The second year I pay 20% of what the improved value is. The third year I pay 40, whatever, 20, 40, 60, 80.
And that's what I wanted to say.
100,
for the
right?
record.
But I pay the full value of the taxes as it is now, right? And I pay the incremental tax over the first, 20% per year for the first 5 years. So by the 5th year, it's paying the full incremental tax. But that incremental tax is all going to pay the bonds. So instead of you getting a portion of that incremental tax, what the new financial plan proposes is you get a percentage of the revenues that the project generates.
This will all be a part of the developer's agreement.
Yeah, I guess that's where it's.
Well,
Does
this
that?
financial plan together would be part of benchmark of the, yeah. But you understand
Is that what you're seeking initially in terms of all this information before bringing your designation to the state?
Right, we were trying to get these numbers on how it would work, but what I understand, though, Carlton, is that there is a pilot. Basically, the city would not get anything. What you're looking to do is to finance this bond with this pilot.
No, that's not correct.
Okay, then explain it.
If the city would always, from day one, get whatever the taxes are today on that property. Well, as I said, if you get $100,000 today, whether we build something there or not, you will still continue to get that $100,000 in taxes. When we build something, you will get that full $100,000. If we build something there that creates an additional $400,000 in taxes, right, then you won't get that, right? That $400,000 will be used to pay the bonds, right? The way that $400,000 will be used, the taxes will roll in for that increment. We pay 20% the first year. We pay the regular value of the taxes the first year. We pay 20% the second year, so forth.
Only for 5 years.
But only for 5 years. And so what that does is, if you look at the bond calculations, that reduces the amount that the bond reduces the amount of the bond money that you can get, because the first 5 years you're actually having less money to pay off the bond. So there has to be money in the bond. It's just like using an interest reserve on a construction loan. If you do a construction loan, if we have $120 million loan on that building, right? In that loan, during construction, we don't pay, and so what happens is the interest for the first 2 years that it takes to build the building are built into the loan. Well, the RAP works the same way. For those first 5 years, while the revenues are only 20%, 40%, 60%, 80%, the payment, the debt service is built into the revenues that you get from the bond, right? So it doesn't affect the money that the city will get. Now,
after 5 years, what happens?
Well, after 5 years, it's still all going to pay the bonds, because the bonds are 25-year bonds, right? But starting year one, what? Yeah. Starting year.
Let me say this.
Yeah.
This is administrative work. This is the portion
Yeah.
of administrative work, and this is where I would say where you have some civility in terms of dialogue,
Yeah.
that you get this information on paper as soon as possible. And as soon as you can put that on paper, I'm sure that Mr. DeBear would be more than happy to have you back the day that we have a designation.
Yeah.
Because I know you're bouncing numbers off and forth. Well, let me get into this. I think you're bouncing a lot of numbers back and forth. What you need is an agreement, and then you need a designation.
Mm-hmm.
You need a designation that you need to stick to. And I will apologize, at least on behalf of this body, that we should have had you back here when the designation expired, and questioned whether or not a new designation needed to be put in place with regard, because you had an investment out there that needed to be secured. But is this information that you guys can sit down and get together in a short period of time and get back here in agreement with regards to a designation? I'm going to assume that is something that you guys can do, and hopefully that the administration can come up to within possible and review in a timely manner and answer any questions and bring back for a designation. I think that's the whole issue. At least, yes, Mr. Lee?
Mr. President, I'm asking you to set the designation with some benchmarks. That back and forth is just another issue. And listen, I don't have a nickel in this quarter except that we need to set some precedent for how we do development. All right? And so I'm asking for, with all due respect, a designation with some benchmarks. I mean, you're going to send them away, have them come back again to give us what?
No,
Benchmarks?
not to give us something, to give the administration.
That's what they work out through the designation.
Correct.
Not, they go back.
The agreement. The designation is to say, the designation simply says, for 1 year, administration has recommended that full spectrum company is designated for a year.
Or 6 months. What do you want to see? I want to see that financial plan. What else?
Whatever needs to be brought to the table to get the agreement.
I'd like to see their financial plan.
Okay.
And I'd like to see what their benchmark is going to be in terms of if they get a 6-month designation tonight, that they come back with a financial plan in 30 days, or is 30 days reasonable? I mean, and then in 60 days, I want to see this. And in 90 days, I want to see this. And I want to see, that's how you do a designation. We've always given designations just open-ended. I'm simply, who do you want to set the parameters for the designation?
No, I guess what I'm looking at is designation and agreements. Maybe we're not saying the same thing.
Okay, help me out.
Well, I think that it's the administration's day-to-day responsibility to get an agreement as soon as possible in a timely manner. And take your suggestion, put those benchmarks in there, and add all that stuff in there. And so when that agreement comes before this table, or that designation comes, it comes with an agreement. And you can look at all the agreement benchmarks.
And we should have did that in the beginning.
We should.
So now I'm saying, give them a designation and set what the benchmarks are going to be. You brought them here for a presentation? Let's get it on. How long is the designation going to be? And what are the benchmarks going to be? So you're not going to hold me hostage again for another hour.
Right. And you're not
going to go away and come
I
back
think
with all the
the question is, how soon can they get this information? You guys,
you're going to tell them how soon they get it.
No. When can you give this information to the city of Trenton, Mr.
You know, we'll have it at the beginning of the month, November. Most of it is pretty much together now. The market study, the commitment letters from the banks that have evaluated the market and are the biggest lenders here. We have that. We have letters from mortgage sales organizations that have a record of selling the product. So we have that sort of information. You know, it's probably the big issue. The big issue, you know, is really for us. You know, for us, the big issue is just getting complete buy-in, you know, on the RAP, because the most critical thing for us is the RAP, right? Because let me tell you this, right? The bank isn't going to lend the money if they don't believe in the market. That's real simple. It doesn't even matter what the market says, right? And the only person that has a nickel in this quarter is us, right? The city doesn't have money in, the state doesn't have money, and we have $3 million in it. And if the deal doesn't make sense, we won't close on it, we won't buy the land, the bank won't provide the money, the equity investor won't go in, right? The only people that are ever at risk on this are ourselves and our equity investors and our lenders, right? And that's just something, you know, that's very different, because we haven't asked the city to come pour in money into this thing. We haven't, you know, what we're saying is it's the increment financing, right? And you know, as opposed to me talking, we'll just write all this up as,
so,
you know.
So let me take what my colleague just suggested, Mr. Bethea, that we ask that you take 30 days to a month from this point forward to provide that information to the administration. And let's hope before we recess for the holiday of December, going into the new year, that we can give you at least as a holiday credit. A designation. That
would be a wonderful holiday.
Well, that's not realistic.
Mr. President,
are we talking about a designation or a development agreement?
I think we're talking about agreement.
Designation first.
Okay, designation. Designation, and you will come back with the agreement. Okay.
Yeah, good. And I don't. Yeah, that's the important thing for me because, you know, the terminology kind of throws me, you know, the designation, that's fine, but the thing that we need to really close on the financing, right, is the developer agreement.
Correct.
I mean, because it's real simple, right, the state, New Jersey, NJRA, they had wanted to put $3 million in early on. They had gotten it approved the board, they looked at our market studies, they looked at our finances, they looked at the bank letters, and they committed $1.6 million, $1.3 million, and we went around, they extended it for a year, and they finally said, we aren't extending this any longer. Nobody, is really serious about moving this forward. So, and they said ultimately that without the developer agreement, we can't access any of the state money, right, that we need, right? And so the private equity people, everybody says developer agreement,
So this 30 days will be okay.
Yeah, we can submit everything that we need within that 30 days.
Let's hope that it's our intention for the years out that we have a designation by December.
Yeah.
By December, so that'll give you an opportunity to forward that information. Any questions, develop your benchmarks, obviously report back to this council within that same period of time, and hopefully with a recommendation for designation as you continue to work out your review. So there's a meeting of the minds, huh?
Not quite.
Well, I mean, I'm asking the administration and the developers. They're meeting of the minds that far.
Yeah, I think so. You see any problem?
The administration needs to provide this council with the benchmarks, inclusive of some of the things that just discussed. So that we don't hold ourselves up any longer.
So one question.
Yes, sir.
In November, end of November, 1st of December, we will get, something with the city council, a designation, right?
That will give hopefully administration an adequate opportunity based on your projections to provide them with information within a few weeks, within a week.
Yeah, right, yeah. But here's what I'm trying to understand, because how do I go from designation to developer agreement?
They have to first clearly spell out what their benchmarks are going to be. Number one.
6 months. They get a developer agreement?
Well, we have to think of the benchmarks. I have to go back and look at the after we provided this financial. Maybe it's not. Maybe with the financial agreement and specific, these aren't really commitment letters, so we need some.
I can't. It's illegal for a bank to give a commitment letter for land that I don't control. They'll go to prison. I'll have to have a developer agreement. I've said that many, many times. The bankers have said that. I don't have a developer agreement.
I'm not asking for 6 months. I'm not asking for 6 months for you to make a determination about anything. I want you to bring back next week.
Typically, developer agreements have...
At the end of the 30 days, when is the 30 days up?
We'll come back first public meeting in December. November is still.
I understand.
November.
So the first meeting in December will be prepared.
We have 2 meetings.
Designate with the benchmarks, and they move forward, or they take their money and go to Harlem.
May I just say something? Typically, quite frankly, every city and municipality and state works differently. But we're working in New York, we're working in Louisiana, Mississippi, North Carolina, and Indiana, right? And what has happened with designations and developer agreements? The developer agreements are conditional. It says, this is your developer agreement. You have site control, but you must do A, B, C, D, E, and F. Otherwise, you don't have a developer. But with that, I can get a real hard commitment for financing, right? So the designation does not do that for me. A conditional developer agreement that has these benchmarks, has these time frames, and says these things you must do. And that's the way it gets done. But to ask me to have finance committed, public finance, without, and that's what I feel like I've been asked to do, right? With not ever having anything in my hand, and it's been frustrating.
generally I've seen the designations come with the agreement.
Yeah.
So if it
That's
is
why-
just a plan again
Okay.
that needs to be closed,
Stay there.
I'm believing that you can get an agreement and a designation
That's right.
and move forward.
That's what I need.
And that's, but you need to provide that information.
We can
and
provide that
hopefully
information.
within that time period that we have,
Yeah.
that we
We can
kind
do
of
that.
verbally agreed to,
Yeah.
informally agreed to, should I say, that should close the gap.
Yeah. Yeah.
That should
That's
close
right.
the gap. I'm assessing it's not, but you're not really far off. But like you said, the glass half empty, half full, or whatever you told me today. I think we're closer than
And I have talked with you.
But the good thing is, there you're at today.
Thank you.
And they're at today.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
So, I would suggest, if there's no other questions, that you get your calendars out on the side. We have more information and more business to take care of. On the side, try to get some hard dates, we can meet and or talk and or have this thing
Just be
wrapped
back
up.
here by December 1st.
Okay, and we'll be in contact with you, through our office.
All right.
Thank you.
Anything else you want to eat off? All right, Rick?
We need to have the information prior to them coming back now. Don't come back December 1st to bring the information. Okay?
Okay. Gentlemen, thank you for your time. You're on the record, Mr. P. Everything you said is
We thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen. God bless you. Have a safe trip back, and we look forward to hearing from you in the very near future.
Okay.
All right, keep that.
Thank you for your time.
Staying on ice.
Okay. Stick him all up. He left his hat here.
I'm not a customer, but I wear them anyway. Take a quick 5-minute break. Quick 5-minute break. All of it. All right, Travis.
Okay, thank you.